Hey guys, Christina South here, certified coding specialist, and I'm here again for a weekly coding tip. Today, we're going to dive a little deeper than we did in last week's coding tip because we're actually going to talk about vascular coding. And if I could have a show of hands, how many of you inpatient coders out there, even outpatient coders, could raise your hand and say you struggle with vascular coding? Vascular coding is just hard, particularly procedural coding, and that is what we're going to focus on today. I want to focus specifically on one specific coding guideline that can help you when you are trying to select the correct code when you are coding vascular procedures, and it is this. If you have your, trying to get to the front of my book and I can't get there easy. If you have a copy of your ICD-10 PCS handy, you can grab this and take a look, or if you have access to it online. You're going to find this coding guideline under the body part section, which is actually section B4. And under B4, and this is B and the number 4, you will then go down to B4 period 1C. This is the coding guideline that I want you to pay attention to. And this is what it states. If a procedure is performed on a continuous section of a tubular body part, veins, arteries, right? Code the body part value corresponding to the furthest anatomical site from the point of entry. So this one guideline can help you decide the correct code when coding procedures on veins and arteries and actually any tubular body part. Now, I'm just focusing on veins and arteries right now because that has been one of the biggest struggles for me personally. And one of the reasons it's been a struggle is because of anatomy issues. How many of us coders remember where all of our veins and arteries are located? I am pretty good at getting very generalizing. I'll know that, say, for example, the femoral artery is in the lower part of my body. And I will know that another artery is in my arm, like brachial artery, or other arteries are on the upper or lower part of the body. And as we know, in PCS, how are these arteries, how are they divided by what's upper and lower? It's diaphragm, right? So if you don't, and even if you don't know which ones are on top and which ones are below, the great thing is there are lots of resources that you have access to figure out where the arteries are located or the veins. One of my resources is this. It is a laminated anatomical guide, and it's got the bones, it has the circulatory system. The beauty of this, it has all the muscles, and so when in doubt, I can turn to this anatomical guide and I can find the veins or arteries that the procedure is being performed on, so I have a starting point of how to begin coding this procedure. Now, I think the femoral artery is one that we are most familiar with, and probably why our coding book even uses it as an example, because the femoral artery is oftentimes what? It is oftentimes the entry point for how many vascular procedures? A lot of them. So, if you read this example, it explains a little bit further about what they mean that when you code a tubular body part, you code the body part value corresponding to the furthest anatomical site from the entry point. So here, if the entry point is at the femoral artery to the external iliac artery with the point of entry at the femoral artery is coded to the external iliac body part. You won't even code the point of entry. You will only code the procedure, what was actually done to the external iliac artery. That's where you will code this to. And this may seem a little bit confusing because you may think, well, is it continuous? All you have to do if you're unsure is look at an anatomy plate. You have access to these. You can look them up online. It's really not difficult to find resources to figure this out. And follow the artery. Put your finger on the artery and follow it. And go, okay, this is continuous. There isn't a point where these arteries part ways. It's continuous. And for the femoral artery, let's say, for example, they're putting a stent in the external iliac artery. They make the entrance in the femoral artery, and the stent is placed in the external iliac artery. You're only going to have to code the external iliac artery, the stent placement there. You do not have to code the insertion, the starting point. So I hope that helps just a little bit if you struggle with vascular coding. This is an area that, to be honest with you, I struggle with, and I'm really seeking out more education and learning, and that's one reason why I'm sharing this with you today, is because sometimes to remember things that we need to learn ourselves, the best thing to do is to share what we have learned about particular topics. And so with coding topics, I'm oftentimes going to share areas where I had weaknesses and where I began to find solutions, find answers, go out of my way to get extra education in these areas, because I don't want these areas to continue to be a weakness in my coding. And I know you don't want that either. So if you have a struggle with vascular coding, I want you to write down this one thing, that to check out the guidelines in B4 body parts and B4 period 1C. Keep that as a reference to help you remember that when you get into a case where there are multiple arteries or veins that a procedure is being performed on, you will have some guidance to start from to understand how to code this procedure. Now again, this is not the end-all, be-all of procedural, vascular procedural coding guidelines and how to codely correct. This is just an example of one of the guidelines that can help you on understanding vascular coding. There are literally books that you can purchase for $300 on vascular coding. This is how complicated vascular coding is. But just keep this guideline in your back pocket. The next time you open up a case where you see that a stent was placed or a clot was removed from an artery, think about this guideline, take a look at it, and you can use this as your starting point. Anyway, I will be back again with more coding tips and guidelines, and I think for the month of April we're going to stick with this theme of vascular coding. So our next coding tip, I'm actually going to focus on coding heart caths, because that's another area that had a big change from ICD-9 to I-10, and it was an area that I really struggled with coding as well. So you guys have a great day. If this didn't make sense, you have any questions, please feel free to post your comments, ask questions. If you have any recommendations for coding tips, I would love to have those as well. And you can also follow me. I'll have all of the links where you can follow me underneath this video, and just have a great day.